You know, on this day, Easter Sunday, we think about the resurrection of Christ. And I've entitled this lesson, Raised for Us. We talk about how he died for us, how he conquered Satan, how he conquered evil, how he conquered sin. And obviously, as Brother McGuigan says, anytime he talked about his coming death, he also included his resurrection, that he would die, but that he would be raised on the third day. And I'd like for us to think about him being raised for us just like he died for us. And there are some passages that stress that. The first passage I'd like to read for you, you can make a note of this if you want to, Romans 14, 8 and 9. I've typed these out so we won't have to spend time looking for them. Paul says, "For if we live to the Lord, and if we die to the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end Christ died and rose and lived again, that he might be Lord of both the dead and the living." So he didn't just die for us, he rose for us, he lives for us to be Lord of us. Whether we're still alive in the flesh or as Christians have already passed on, he is Lord of the dead and the living who are in him, Lord of lords, King of kings. And I especially like where it says, we are the Lord's. We are not the dead lords, we are the living lords. And again, as Brother McGuigan has so often stressed, he died 2,000 years ago, but he hasn't been dead since. So Christ was raised for us to be Lord of us, and that shouldn't be threatening. It doesn't mean he's an ogre looking for us to make a mistake so he can swat us. He wants to be Lord of our lives, and we should want him to be Lord of our lives. Raised for us, not just raised to be victorious, raised for us to share in that victory. The second passage that I have in mind is 1 Peter 1, 3 through 5. "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his abundant mercy has begotten us again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance incorruptible and undefiled, and that does not fade away, reserved in heaven for you who are kept by the power of God through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time." Now, there's obviously a lot of meat in just those 3 verses, but it's God the Father, according to his abundant mercy, who has begotten us again. Born again is what that is talking about, to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Christ raised to be our living hope. Other passages talk about him as our hope, but this particular passage talks about living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Then the inheritance, incorruptible and undefiled, won't fade away, reserved in heaven for you who are kept. We're kept. Jesus raised to keep us. We're kept by the power of God through faith for salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. I know we think about Christ being raised to be victorious over Satan, destroying the one who had the power of death. We even in Genesis 3:15, we see that prophecy of how Satan would bruise his heel, but he would bruise the head of Satan. And I don't want to take anything away from any of that, but I want us to understand raised for us, not just raised for himself, not just raised to defeat Satan, raised for us, living hope, Lord of our lives, the hope of our lives. And then the last passage that I have here is from Hebrews 7:24 and 25. But he, because he continues forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. The he is, of course, Christ, because he continues forever. Unchangeable priesthood for us. We don't have to look for another priest. You know, they had priests who came and went under the Old Testament, priests who had to offer for their own sins as well as for the sins of others. Christ offered himself once. He, sinless, of course, the perfect lamb. And here it talks about he now lives forever, unchangeable forever. And then listen to the next verse here. Therefore, he is also able to save to the uttermost those who come to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. Lives for us, to intercede for us, to save us to the uttermost. And I had read that passage many times, had taught it, preached it, but I think the emphasis that Brother McGuigan put on that some weeks ago made it even more meaningful to me. Saved to the uttermost. Not just saved today, saved ultimately, eternally, as he intercedes for us, living to intercede for us. We go through him in prayer to the Father, but we need to understand he's there interceding. He's there pleading our case. He's there saying, Father, this is one of mine. Father, this one has my blood, cleansing him or her. So Christ raised for us, not just for himself, not just in obedience to the Father, not just to destroy Satan, raised for us to be Lord of us, to be our hope, to be our intercessor, saving us to the uttermost. I think that means complete, absolutely complete salvation. And I'm glad a few of you even stayed around for this presentation that can be heard later, hopefully by anybody and everybody that wants to hear it. Thank you for your time.